to one and all. I am Denita Mendes and I represent the Ernakulam branch of SICASA of ICAI, and I will be presenting the study circle on the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996. This study circle is hosted jointly by SICASA Ernakulam and Vikasa Satara. Speaking of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, we know that it is one of the economic laws we have to study in the new syllabus paper 4, Corporate and Economic Laws. From an examination perspective, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act is asked for an average of 3 marks. But hey, are we complaining? What if that 3 marks make a 197 into a 200? Due to time constraints, we will be focusing on the arbitral award portion of the Act. So without much ado, let's get started.
When parties in a legal relationship have a dispute, they usually approach the judiciary. They go to lawyers, lawyers file suits, arguments fly back and forth, the court listens to those arguments and arrives at a decision, parties are dissatisfied with that decision, they go for an appeal, and this process repeats for the major part of a couple of decades, if not more. To be frank, most of these disputes can be settled if both the parties meet outside the court and try to talk things out between themselves, especially in the presence of a mediator who wants to settle the dispute once and for all. Considering the present scenario where the Indian system of judiciary is overburdened with the sheer number of litigations pending, the need of the hour is to move away from the judiciary to burden the judicial system much lesser. This is exactly what alternate dispute resolution mechanisms are about. Alternate dispute resolution. Alternate methods of dispute resolution aims to resolve disputes outside the ordinary court system. That is, they are alternatives to litigation. As we just previously saw, the approaching the courts is pretty much a difficult process. It's expensive, time consuming, and also cumbersome. So ADR mechanisms aim to resolve disputes between parties in a much faster, more efficient, and especially more cost-efficient manner. ADR enjoys significant advantages over the judicial mechanism in respect of saving of costs, time and effort, greater chance of settlement, flexibility in process, forum, and solutions. There are different methods of alternate dispute resolution, some being arbitration, conciliation, negotiation, mediation. This study circle is focusing on arbitration. What is arbitration all about? Arbitration could be understood as a method of ADR where the dispute is resolved by one or more neutral third persons selected by the disputing parties and whose decision is binding. As we can clearly see, there's a dispute between parties and they appoint one or more neutral third persons whose aim is to resolve that dispute. They listen to what the parties have to say and they arrive at an award which is final and binding on these parties. So the 3 elements are dispute, neutral third parties, and the final and binding award. This definition of arbitration has been taken from the Black Law Dictionary. Unfortunately, in the ANC Act, which is the act we are going to study right now, does not have a proper definition, does not have an, a definition that explains what arbitration is. About the ANC Act, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 is the key law, I repeat, key law governing arbitration in India. So there's this United Nations body called the UNCITRAL, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. It aims to resolve international commercial disputes. So the UNCITRAL came into existence early in the 1950s and India had been a signing party to all its conventions. The main conventions are New York Convention and Geneva Convention. So in 1980, the UNCITRAL brought out a conciliation rules for which aims to govern international commercial conciliation. And in 1985, they brought about a model law on international commercial arbitration. The ANC Act is parts of the ANC Act is based on these UNCITRAL's proposed laws. Also, These UNCITRAL laws are specifically aimed to enhance uniformity in international commercial arbitration processes. But however, countries like India and China have adopted thus the procedure for international commercial arbitration for domestic arbitration as well. However, we cannot say that it's just the verbatim copy. Whatever is in the UNCITRAL is also in the ANC Act. There are significant deviations, particularly in Section 31A, Section 36. Section 31A is the regime for costs. Section 36 is the enforcement. We'll see that later. So, the legislative intent and essence of the Arbitration Act is to bring domestic as well as international commercial arbitration in consonance with the UNCITRAL model rules, the New York Convention and the Geneva Convention. The ANC Act underwent two major amendments in 2015 and 2019 so as to adapt to the ever-evolving scenario of arbitration as well as to make India more arbitration friendly. So, this is the objective of the Act. The preamble, I've just taken a copy of the preamble. An act to consolidate and amend the law relating to domestic arbitration, international commercial arbitration and enforcement of foreign arbitral awards, as also to define the law relating to conciliation and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. This is just the preamble of the Act. So I've just broken down the structure of the Act. So the Arbitration Act, ANC Act, has four parts. The first part is arbitration. It has sections 1 to 43. It contains general provisions on domestic arbitration. This is basically the UNCITRAL Model Rules 1985, albeit with some modifications. Then part 2 is the New York Conventions. So sections 44 to 60, enforcement of certain foreign awards. Part 3, section 61 to 81 deals with conciliation. And part 4, that is section 82 to 87. Section 87 is a 2019 introduction. It deals with miscellaneous matters. The Act has 87 sections divided into 4 parts. In addition, it has also 7 schedules dealing with matters relating to ADR. In addition to the ANC Act, the Indian Contract Act of 1872 and Section 89 of the Code of Civil Procedures 1908 also govern the ADR process in India. Speaking of the schedules, we have 7 schedules. The 2019 amendment also sought to bring an 8th schedule. We'll be seeing more about that later. The 8th schedule is not yet in existence right now. So, I've just given a brief outline, a very basic outline of the arbitration process. So, before all this arbitration, the dispute process starts, first thing, for arbitration to happen, the parties should enter into an agreement to refer any disputes to the arbitrator. So, even before there are disputes, they should enter into an arbitration agreement. We can see that in the Act. This agreement will say that they will approach the arbitrator instead of the court in case any dispute happens. Then, obviously, dispute arises, and after that, according to the previous agreement, the aggrieved party, either party will initiate arbitration by sending an arbitration notice to the other parties. Soon after the arbitration notice is sent, the arbitration process really kickstarts. That is with the appointment of the arbitrator or the arbitral tribunal. So, an arbitrator is a single person, while an arbitral tribunal may refer to either a single arbitrator or a group of arbitrators, a panel of arbitrators. So, soon after the appointment of arbitrators, a statement of claim has to be filed. The aggrieved party will file the statement of claim, and the other party replies with a statement of defense or a statement of counterclaim. The tribunal will hear both the parties. All the parties is the right term. All the parties, their statements and evidences. It hears everything out. It checks the evidences. It checks the supportings. And in the end, they pass the arbitral award. Arbitral award is what we are going to focus on. And if either party is dissatisfied or they want to make corrections, they seek recourse against the arbitral award under section 34. And once they get the recourse, or if that application is rejected, the arbitral award is enforced. This is the basic process of arbitration. So, this study circle aims to address the topic of arbitral award. Arbitral award is dealt by the sections 29 to 36 of the Act. That is spread over chapters 6, 7 and 8. However, I have also left out a few sections which do not pertain to our syllabus and which are not pertaining to arbitral award. So, what is an arbitral award? I've been talking about arbitral award for a long time right now. An arbitral award is a decision arrived at by the arbitral tribunal on the various issues in a matter which the parties had placed before the tribunal. It is basically a judgment. If a court of law makes a judgment, an arbitral tribunal makes the arbitral award. It is a conclusive determination as to the questions, issues, or disputes that are put forward before the arbitral tribunal. That is, once this arbitral award is made, case closed. That dispute is deemed to be resolved. And it is also final and binding on the parties. This is specifically mentioned in the section 35 of the Act. So, these are the requirements of the arbitral award. These requirements mean only one thing. If any of these requirements, any of these characteristics, features are not met by the arbitral award, its validity can be challenged. It cannot become enforceable in the worst case. So, the following are the requirements that are mandatorily required to be satisfied by an arbitral award. If it doesn't, you can challenge it. So, section 29, subsection 1. In case where there are more than one arbitrator, any decision of the arbitral tribunal shall be made by a majority of all its members. It's a basic common sense thing. It's like if you have a panel of 3 arbitrators, the decision should be made at least by 2 arbitrators. It should be a majority decision. Specifically, if you have more than one arbitrator, you are supposed to talk things through, and a majority of arbitrators must make the decision. Section 31, subsection 1. It should be in writing and signed by the members of the arbitral tribunal. In case where there are more than one arbitrator, signature of the majority members of the tribunal will do, as long as the reason for any member not signing is stated. As in the case, we had previously 3 arbitrators. 2 arbitrators agree, 1 arbitrator does not agree. So the why this last arbitrator, the 3rd arbitrator does not agree, should be mentioned. That is in section 31, subsection 2. And the award should be in writing and it should be signed by all the members who agree to the decision, who have made that decision. Section 31, subsection 3. Now this. Arbitral award shall state the reasons upon which it is based, unless the parties have agreed that no reasons are to be given, or the award is an arbitral award on agreed terms under section 30. Section 30 refers to a settlement award, where the parties themselves talk things through without the arbitrator involved, and they arrive at a settlement, they submit it to the arbitrator, and the arbitrator is happy with it. That kind of award is a settlement award. That is, it's governed by section 30. Or where the parties have agreed that no reasons are to be given. Except in these 2 scenarios, the arbitral award should explain the rationale of the arbitrators when they arrived at that decision. What is the reason behind giving that decision? It should be mentioned. Then, 31 subsection 4, the arbitral award shall state its date and place of arbitration, and the award shall be deemed to have been made at that place. So the place of arbitration is the place. It is arrived at according to the provisions of section 20. And so why this date and place? Date we will see later, because date is used why is the date so important? The date is the consideration used. It's the focal point in section 33, section 34. So there are provisions which deal with appeals or with correction requests. So it will be made within 1 month from the date on which the arbitral award is received by the parties. After the arbitral award is made, a signed copy shall be delivered to each party. So in the section 31 subsection 4, we saw that an arbitral award should be dated. It should have the date mentioned in it. And the place also is important, because you should know where to approach the court if in case that scenario arises. So section 31 subsection 5, an arbitral award is made on the date on which it is made, and it should be delivered to the parties. A signed copy of the award should be delivered to the parties as soon as possible. And the section 33 and all will come into action immediately from the date on which the parties receive that copy. So these are the other requirements. The award should be crystal clear as to the decision on each issue and which party has to do what. Duties, liabilities and relief offered to each party. There should not be any doubt as to the contents of the award, nor should it look like a recommendation or an option at the hand of any party. It should not look like this A and B have a dispute, let's say. So A is suggested, or it is advised that A should pay. That should not be the term. It should look like an order. A should pay the B the sum of rupees 1 lakh within the period of 1 month, failing which he will have to pay interest at the rate of 6% per annum. Simple interest 6% per annum. It should be that specific. It should not be vague in any sense. The award should be capable of being performed. It should be realistic. It should be realistic in the sense you can't ask the award to go get me the moon. You can't ask that. It should be enforceable. If it's not enforceable, the award can be set aside. The award must not be illegal or against public policy. This is section 34, subsection 2, clause B, subclause 2, and clause 2A, subsection 2A. Public policy is spelled out in explanation 1 to section 34, subsection 2. So, types of arbitral award. Types of arbitral award, there are mainly 4. The first one is the final award. An award made in accordance with the legal requirements. That is, it satisfies all the requirements mentioned previously. It gives a final adjudication on the issues submitted. That is, A and B are in a dispute. Once a final award is made, the arbitration process is closed. Case closed. The dispute is resolved. And then there is a settlement award. The parties arrive at a settlement amongst themselves. The tribunal has no objection and the settlement is recorded in the form of an award. I mentioned this previously, section 30. So if A and B are at a dispute, they talk things through, they manage to arrive at a settlement, and they propose the settlement to the arbitrator. If the arbitrator or the tribunal has nothing against it, has no objection, it will take up that decision, it will draft it into the form of an award. So that's the section 30, settlement award. An award which is a settlement award need not give its reason in writing. Then there's the additional award. Additional award is, okay, let's say A and B have a dispute between each other, have a dispute going on, and an award which is thought to be final, and a final award is made by the arbitral tribunal. But within a month, within 60 days from the date of the final award, either A or B realizes that it does not cover all the matters. Let's say there are 4 disputes, and the award deals with only 3 disputes. While both the parties and the tribunal was of the idea that all the disputes were covered. So in such a case, they will immediately move to the tribunal and tell the tribunal that you have not given a decision on the 4th matter. And the 4th matter is thereby taken up by the arbitral tribunal, and the tribunal brings out an additional award. It is thought this additional award will be taken as a part of the first final award. And then we have the interim award. So the interim award needs an explanation. So although we've always seen arbitral award to be final and binding, this is an exception, because the Act itself says arbitral award includes an interim award. So what is an interim award? Interim award can be of 2 types, which is either a temporary award. It is in force till the final award is rendered. And then you have another type, an award where all disputes have not been adjudicated and it is clear at the time of rendering. Just as in the case of the additional award, A and B have a dispute. The dispute is on 4. There are 4 disputes technically, 4 matters of dispute, and both the tribunal and the parties know that this award declared deals with only 3 matters. The 4th matter is untouched. So regarding the 3 matters it spells out, it is final and binding. So soon there will be another award dealing with the 4th matter. This is an interim award. The first award in the award for the 3 matters is an interim award. However, it is final and binding regarding the 3 disputes it deals with. Time limit for award. Section 29A. I've just given a screenshot of the Bare Act. So, how does it look? Hello. I've just simplified the provisions of Section 29A. First, the arbitral agreement is entered into. The arbitral agreement is entered into by the parties, which is the first step in the process of arbitration. So, and this part here, it includes the dispute, the arbitration notice, and all the process that falls in between. And the arbitrators get appointed. They get notice of their appointment. Arbitrators get notice of their appointment. Within 6 months of the arbitrators getting notice of their appointment, they are supposed to complete the pleadings. This is Section 23 subsection 4, which is the latest amendment. So within 6 months of the arbitrators getting notice of their appointment, they're supposed to complete the process where the parties file statements of claim, statements of counterclaim, statements of defense. All of that should be completed within 6 months. And within 12 months from the date of completion of pleadings, award should be declared. This is the basic idea. Section 29A subsection 1. This is for domestic arbitration. For international arbitration, the process should be aimed to complete as fast as possible, as expeditiously as possible, with the maximum time period being 12 months. Further, this is additional provision. If the award is made within a period of 6 months from the date of the arbitral tribunal enters upon the reference. What is entering upon the reference? That is the date on which the arbitral proceeding. The parties refer their dispute to the tribunal. So when the tribunal starts acting on it, they say it's enters upon the reference. The arbitral tribunal shall be entitled to receive such amount of additional fees as the parties may agree. This is a sort of incentive to be given to the arbitrators for their commendable work, if they finish their work sooner, faster than what the Act says. Within 6 months from the date on which the arbitral tribunal enters upon the reference. Further, the parties may by consent extend the period specified in subsection 1. What is the period specified in subsection 1? 12 months. Extend the period specified in subsection 1 for making award for a further period not exceeding 6 months. So what is the maximum maximum period that can be extended by the parties? 6 months. 6 months extension by parties. So 12 plus 6, 18 months is the maximum time period available at the hands of the arbitral tribunal for declaring their award. Further, even if the award is not declared within 18 months, stop. The arbitral tribunal's mandate is ending here. Stop. That's it. But however, the court can extend this period further, which is upon the request of the parties. But there's a catch here. It is extension. Such extension is subject to the court's conditions. The court will put forward the terms and conditions for such extension. If the court thinks that the tribunal is not doing a good job, it can, or the tribunal is being over remunerated, it can cut down on such remuneration, and it can even substitute the tribunal. Even the tribunal can be done away with. That such extension by court is on the terms and conditions of the court and the court only, and such extension will be made only upon request by the parties. That is section 29A. Now, section 29B, that is fast track procedure. This is purely for an educational point of view. It's not mentioned anywhere in our syllabus. We just previously saw that an arbitral award should be declared within 18 months. However, if the parties think that the dispute should be resolved as fast as possible, they will go for a fast track procedure. So, what does the fast track procedure aim to resolve? The fast track procedure aims to resolve the dispute within 6 months. See, subsection 4. Within a period of 6 months from the date on which the arbitral tribunal enters upon the reference. What we saw previously, this subsection 4 is the same time period we saw previously in subsection 3 of section 29A. That is within 6 months from the date on which the arbitral tribunal acts upon the reference. So when can you opt for such a fast track procedure? The parties have to agree in writing to opt for fast track procedure either before or at the time of appointment of the arbitral tribunal. So either before or at the time of appointment, at least by the time of appointing arbitral tribunal, they have to decide for whether they want the fast track process or they want the good old arbitration process, which does not involve any fast track. So what are the features? What makes the fast track really go on a fast track? Arbitral tribunal shall consist of a sole arbitrator. There is no kind of, talking between the panel and there is no arriving at a consensus. It is just one single arbitrator. Subsection 3A and C. The arbitral tribunal shall decide the dispute on the basis of written pleadings, documents, etc. filed by the parties. No oral hearing is involved unless the arbitral tribunal thinks it's necessary to have an oral hearing, or if all the parties make the request. Come on, the parties themselves decide on fast track procedure. If the parties decide for an oral proceeding, there should be an oral proceeding. That is one of the biggest features of arbitration. Arbitration is extremely flexible. It bends and flexes itself to meet the requirements of the parties. The tribunal may dispense with any technical formalities if an oral hearing is held and adopt such procedure as deemed appropriate for expeditious disposal of the case. Again, what does arbitral procedure, fast track procedure aim to do? It aims to resolve the dispute at an expeditious manner. So, if the arbitral tribunal thinks that such and such procedures are unnecessary, it can be done. It can, not do it. Now, the consequences of not meeting this time frame. If the award is not made within 6 months, the provisions of subsections 3 to 9 of section 29A shall apply to the proceedings. What is subsection 3? The parties can further extend this time period by 6 months more. Further, if this time period is not met, if there is 6 plus 6, 12 months, award is not declared, stop, and then the court steps in. Correcting the arbitral award. This is a really interesting section. I previously mentioned that from the date on which the arbitral award is received by the parties can give a request to the arbitral tribunal for making correction. What sort of correction? Only these types of corrections, only this request can be made. It can only correct any clerical errors or typographic errors or of that sort. Or it can give a request for interpreting a specific point of the award. Within 30 days of receiving, within the parties receives the award, within 30 days such a request should be given. If not, such a request will not be valid. Further, the tribunal will receive that request. Within 30 days of such receiving that request, the tribunal should correct the error or give interpretation. So this is the case where a party notes such an error, a typographical error to be specific, a clerical or typographic error, and request the tribunal to kindly correct that error. Further, the tribunal may also suo motu correct any clerical error within 30 days from the date of the award. This is where, the first subsection deals with cases where the party sees the error. The tribunal also, if they find such a clerical error, they can resolve it within 30 days of the award. If necessary, the tribunal can extend the time for making correction, giving interpretation, or to issue an additional award. Now, this is another important point, challenging an arbitral award. So, there are two types of challenge. Challenging an arbitral award can be broadly categorized into two. That is, one is appeal, where questions relating to fact and law can be raised. And the other is application for setting aside the award. Recourse against the arbitral award, section 34. Before that, let me cover appeal, that is challenge of bias against tribunal. There is this section 12 subsection 3 which links to schedule 5. The schedule 5 deals with grounds where justifiable doubts exist, where the scenarios where the arbitrator is deemed to be biased. Let's say his independence and his impartiality is subjected to doubt. So section 13 deals with challenges of bias. So if the arbitrator is found to be biased, the arbitral award so declared can be challenged. The parties can go to court and tell that this arbitrator was not impartial, so the award's legality is questioned there. Then section 16, overstepping of jurisdiction by tribunal, which is basically self-explanatory. The arbitral award steps out of the powers it has to make a decision. Let us look at the provisions of section 34 in detail. Who can file an application for setting aside an arbitral award? Only a party to the arbitration can file an application to set aside an arbitral award. With whom? The court. Now, court is a concept that has been source of much debate. After the 2015 amendment, the definition of court has been specifically defined to involve only the High Court in case of an international commercial arbitration, and for all other arbitration, which is domestic arbitration, both the district court and the High Court in their original jurisdiction. So, and further, it also involves a judicial authority, which is not defined under that. The definition of the explanation of court is outside the purview of the study circle. I'm not going into detail. So, and within what time period should such an application be made? Such an application should be made within 3 months. Within 3 months, further extendable by a period of 30 days. Within 3 months, further extendable by a period of 30 days of parties' receipt of the award or date on which the request under section 33 was disposed of by the tribunal. As we saw earlier, section 33 refers to request filed for explanation, for interpretation or correction of clerical errors. So if such an application was made within 3 months plus 30 days, that is 4 months technically, within 4 months of such an application under section 33 is disposed of, not an application, sorry, request. So within 3 months plus 30 days, 3 months plus further extendable 30 days, such an application for setting aside an arbitral award should be made. Further, there is no automatic stay in the system of arbitration. There is no automatic stay. The parties have to request for it to the court, and the court has to find it appropriate for the tribunal to get an opportunity to either resume arbitral proceedings or take action to eliminate the grounds for setting aside the arbitral award. So we will be seeing the grounds later. See, arbitration as it is aims to reduce judicial intervention. So, and that is exactly the point of this subsection to section 34. The stay or it aims to reduce the chances, reduce the tendencies of the parties to go and approach the court of law. So the court itself tries to reduce its intervention by trying to give the arbitral tribunal an opportunity to eliminate the grounds for setting aside the arbitral award. There is no automatic stay. I repeat, there is no automatic stay in the case of an arbitration. What are the grounds? Or the arbitral award can be set aside only on 7 specific grounds mentioned in the law. This is mentioned in section 34 subsection 2 clause A. This is subclause 1. Party makes an application. This is subclause 1. All the motions under subclause 1, the party has to make a specific application. Against what grounds? The following are the grounds. Either party suffers any incapacity, either the party is a lunatic or an undischarged insolvent or he's a minor, then the arbitration agreement not being valid. If the arbitration agreement is invalid, then there can be no arbitration. Like the arbitration agreement is decided upon, is entered into by the parties right at the beginning, even before a dispute happens. This arbitration agreement specifies that the parties will go to an arbitrator instead of the court in case a dispute arises. So if the arbitration agreement itself is not valid, then the arbitration itself is pointless. There's no point in going on to the arbitration. Party not given proper notice of arbitral proceedings. What is the importance of notice? The single 6-letter word has the power to have an adverse impact on the party's ability to present its case. For example, A and B are in a dispute and party B does not get any information as to what is going on in the process of arbitration. He does not get any information. For example, if this arbitral tribunal calls for a hearing and issues a notice regarding the same, but party B does not get it, then what is the opportunity of party B to make itself clear, make its stance clear? This is the violation of one of the basic legal maxims of audi alteram partem. It means giving an opportunity to the other party to be heard. So, if there is no notice, it can have an adverse impact on the party's ability to present its case. Then, nature of dispute not falling within the terms of submission to arbitration. If there are two parties, A and B, they have 3 disputes and only 2 disputes are submitted for arbitration and the arbitral award deals with the 3rd dispute which is not submitted. The award is pointless. You can obviously go to court and tell the court that, dear court, this arbitral award does not pertain to the dispute submitted to arbitration. Then, arbitral procedure not being in accordance with the agreement. As we saw previously, this arbitration itself is a very flexible process. It can be modified according to the requirements of the parties, and the parties had agreed upon a procedure early in the process or even the time of the arbitral agreement, but the arbitral tribunal follows a procedure which is not in conformity with what was agreed beforehand. So in such a situation also they can give an application to the court, the party can give an application to the court regarding the award, regarding setting aside the award. Section 34 subsection 2a clause 2. This is where the court suo motu, the court finds that there is such a ground and it steps inside on its own without any application from the party. Point number 1, dispute is unarbitrable. It is not capable of settlement by arbitral process. And so the other point is award is in conflict with the public policy of India. Public policy, as we saw earlier, public policy is where this section 7 is affected by fraud, corruption, or is in violations of section 75 or section 81. What does section 75 and section 81 do? It deals with confidentiality in case of arbitration. If the arbitrator does not keep his mouth shut about what is happening in the arbitration process, the arbitral award can be set aside, or is in contravention of fundamental policy of Indian law, or is in conflict with the most basic notions of morality or justice. Then, another case, this is outside these 7 grounds. If the court finds that the award is prima facie illegal, this is only in the case of a domestic award. For an international commercial arbitration, this will not apply. An arbitral award arising out of arbitrations other than international commercial arbitration may also be set aside by the court if the court finds that the award is vitiated by patent illegality appearing on the face of the award. Now, what are the consequences of challenge? Consequence of challenge: A, set aside. The court finds that the grounds on which the application was filed by the party is well and good. It is sound. It exists, and therefore it sets aside the award. From the moment the court decides that the award should be set aside, the award is nothing. It has no legal sanctity. It is just a piece of paper. It has no legal sanctity. Then, point number B, confirmation. Confirmation is that the court finds that the party is bluffing. There's nothing wrong. There is nothing legally wrong with the award, and it gives the green signal as to enforcement. Then we have modification. Modification. Please note there is a difference between modification and remission. Modification, the court neither sets the award nor does it confirm it. However, the court itself makes modifications in the award wherever necessary. The court makes modifications here, as opposed to remitting back. Remitting back is the case where the court sends the award back to the tribunal for it to rectify some defects. If not corrected, the award will be set aside. So the court itself will send back the award to the arbitral tribunal for it to correct. The court does not correct it, the arbitral tribunal makes the correction. And if the arbitral tribunal does not make such a correction, the award can be thrown in the trash. I mean, technically set aside. So, Section 36 deals with enforcement. Section 36 deals with enforcement where the time for making an application to set aside an arbitral award under Section 34 has expired, or where an application to set aside the arbitral award, so application to set aside the arbitral award under Section 34 has been filed and rejected, subject to the provisions of subsection 2, such award shall be enforced in accordance with the provisions of Code of Civil Procedure 1908 in the same manner as if it were a decree of the court. This is verbatim Section 36 subsection 1 and 2. This is subsection 1 and this is subsection 2. So, if the time limit, that is 3 months and 30 days, has expired, or if such an application has been filed and rejected, then it means it's green signal for the award to get enforced. So it should be enforced as if it were a decree of the court. What does the decree of the court mean? Let's look. According to Section 36 of the Act, where the period for filing objections under Section 34 has expired or objections have been rejected, the award can be enforced under CPC 1908 in the same manner if it were a decree passed by a court of law. This extends even to a settlement award issued under Section 30. However, when the Act says to treat an award as if it were a decree of the court, it implies that it is up to the losing party to object to the award and petition the court for setting it aside. And the winning party has to make no procedural move. Come on, this is basically the contravention of the mere idea of arbitration. Arbitration exactly means to not involve the court. But here, we are again involving the court. If it were a decree of the court under CPC can obviously be challenged by filing an appeal against it. So it is just another, to be frank, in practical point of view, arbitration award is just another form of a usual court award. Therefore, the Indian law has fundamentally departed from the model law in this regard. Model law in the sense. Now, this is a 2019 amendment. 2019 amendment came into force, was introduced on the 9th of August, but came into force only on the 30th of August, and only a small part of what was introduced were implemented. This is Section 23, subsection 4. This is the latest amendment. As we mentioned earlier, all the statements of claim and statements of counterclaim and all those pleadings should be completed within the period of 6 months from the date on which the arbitrators receive notice of their appointment. This is subsection 23, subsection 4. Section 23, subsection 4. Section 26, which deals with experts being appointed by the tribunal, has been scrapped. Another amendment which requires mentioning is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, which has been implemented, and the impact of which comes into the ANC Act as well. It is more evidently seen in the Section 34, where we saw that the time period for making an application under Section 34 was 3 months further extendable by 30 days. For the Union Territories of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, this time period is 6 months further extendable by 60 days. Another major amendment that was to happen but was not implemented yet. It's not implemented yet. It's the institutional arbitration. Institutional arbitration is where a national body, which is set to be established in New Delhi. It is already in the new law regarding the New Delhi International Arbitration Center Act 2019 has already come into force. The 2019 amendment prima facie proposes a system of institutional arbitration as opposed to the ad hoc arbitration system prevalent now. By way of a new law, the New Delhi International Arbitration Center Act 2019, the government seeks to establish an international hub for arbitration in India, taking cues from centers in London, Dubai, and elsewhere in the world. Now, as we spoke earlier, the 8th schedule. The 8th schedule inherently is unconstitutional, and I guess that is why it is not yet enforced. It says it gives a long list of people about who can be appointed, what qualifications an arbitrator need in order to be appointed. However, on a closer look, this schedule contradicts the judgment in A.K. Balaji case. As we remember, A.K. Balaji case was a decision made by the Honorable Madras High Court, which says that even a foreign lawyer can be an arbitrator. Arbitration in India goes a long way back. If we can consider the Mahabharata as an evidence, we can see Lord Krishna trying to play mediator between the warring cousins of Pandavas and Kauravas. And then came the British with their quasi-Anglo-Indian judicial system, and India started moving away from mediators and arbitrators to the courts, to the court of law. The ANC Act was introduced with a view to save time, money and other resources, as well as to take away the undue strain on the judiciary. However, this is mostly on paper. Arbitration in India suffers from a trend of procrastination, and more often than not, the total fee payable to the tribunal, the lawyers and other arbitration costs make up for the comparative expeditiousness. The real cost lies in whether this is worth or not. The latest amendments seek to encourage arbitration, both domestic and international, and to make India an arbitration hub for the world. At this pace, it is going to take a while. It is still, however, a small step in the right direction. I hope the study circle was informative to you all. Thank you and all the very best.